I have a distinct memory orientation back right before we started. We were split off into majors, and I remember them calling out my major, and I stood up, and four other guys stood up, and that was it. And it definitely was intimidating to go, great, I'm the only female at orientation right now. When I got to school, I was actually kind of blessed with a grade that had a lot of other females in it, and still does. A lot of us haven't dropped out, and that's really exciting. But as it's grown, I personally am a very tenacious, stubborn woman, and so I tend to not take no for an answer. I guess the only places that I've found frustration in being a woman in this field is that there are guys who feel like they do know everything, and fighting back with those guys who just kind of talk over you is difficult.
Again, I liked the classes, I liked what I was learning, but I definitely noticed that I was the only girl. I took one class with, it was like 140 people, and I counted somewhere between 6 and 8 girls every day, so max of 8. So that was interesting, but I definitely made friends with the boys, and I had fun with the classes, and so it wasn't really a problem for me. In all honesty, I felt like I was sometimes more respected with the people that I was with in the class, because a lot of times I actually understood the material better than them, and so I would go teach them and help them with their computer science classes, and this was just the few people that I made friends with. And then the ones that I would go to ones that could help me sometimes, and it was definitely, I think, different because I had less friends in the classes than some of the other guys, but I felt like the ones that I did make friends with had a certain amount of respect for me, which was nice.
There was a lot of classes where I was the only girl, and it was definitely noticeable for the teachers. I used to get, not necessarily picked on, but I was always chosen to answer questions a lot more often. I don't know if that was because I was the only girl in the room, but I definitely think it was, when I first started with computer science, much more male-oriented, and I didn't really have any access to like female friends in the computer science field. I don't think that computer science, like I never felt uncomfortable. I don't think that was really my reason for leaving. It was more just like my interests had ended up changing. But I felt very comfortable, and I don't know if it was just because I'm a very social person, but I ended up making a lot of male friends within the computer science programs here, and ended up like starting homework groups, and we ended up all like really connecting on a really great level. But at the same time, there was also like no female companionship there. So that kind of was unfortunate. With CUS 226, which is data structures. And I definitely felt sort of at a disadvantage. I had a lot of friends that were really good at programming, and I definitely doubted my abilities many times in that class. And like had multiple breakdowns that I was not going to be able to pass the class. I did, I got a B in it, but yeah, I definitely, compared to like all the other guys in that class, I definitely felt I was at a disadvantage. I think there was 2 other girls in that class with me, but I never actually ended up talking with them. I wish I kind of had, just to see if they were also in the same situation as me, but I'm not really sure if they were or not.
There were like significantly less girls in the classes than guys, and I don't know if it's a personality thing or what, but like some classes, like people like come together and they're like, oh, let's do a study group, and then like you become friends with the people in the class, which happened for me, but with all guys, because none of the girls like were like reaching out to each other, because you're shy and you're not like used to a college setting. At this point, I would walk up to anyone if someone like told me to, and I would introduce myself and whatever. But at the time, I was like, I don't know these people, like not like going to just go up and be like, hey, you're a girl, I'm a girl, let's study together. So and no one wants to come together apparently because they're all very shy, or maybe they like working alone. And so, like I said, I was lucky where I had like a group of guys on my floor who all wanted to study together, but that's not always the case. And it certainly, I wasn't studying with other girls except for my roommate for the short amount of time she was in computer science.
I think that in some of the freshman level classes where you're in, you know, a big physics class of 200 people with like all the engineering majors, I felt a little bit more outnumbered and like out of place, because it wasn't just with my major, you know, the 50-50 regular split. It was the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers, civil. It was all of us pretty much together. So I was definitely like in the minority in some of those classes. And then when we'd break up to have smaller recitation classes, I might be one of like 4 girls in a class of 25 or something like that. So some of those like bigger entry-level classes, I definitely felt a little bit more out of place. I think another thing that helped is that I'm in SWE, so the Society of Women Engineers is just a club, all of women engineers, and it's nice to get to meet women from other disciplines and kind of learn about their experiences, and then you might end up in classes together, and then you actually know someone that's from a different discipline that you never would have known otherwise.
Well, there weren't many women in the class. In the intro class, there were actually quite a few. There was maybe 10%, if that, of the 100 or 120 people that were in the class. It was, I think they really tried hard to make it engaging for the students, but the problem is that I'm not really sure that they understood that there were different students in their classes. And then my second class, I was one of 2 women out of maybe 80. And, it just didn't feel like, it was a supportive environment. There wasn't anything in particular that somebody did wrong, but it wasn't an environment where you felt like you could easily succeed. You had to really work at it. And so I found supports outside of class in my department with other women who had more experience doing this and were willing to act as kind of mentors and tutors and, cheerleaders mostly. Like, you can do this. Like, let's figure this out.
I only encountered it, I think, once during the very beginning of 125 where no one really knew each other. So it was kind of, people I think were judging each other based on more service level stuff than they were as you continued in the semester, and people actually knew you for who you were, your work. So the very first project we had in computer science, I think, they divided us into teams. We had little smaller ones that weren't group projects. But the first group one we had, they divided us into teams and they'd assign roles in the team. And they're like, and you do this, you do this, you do this, and you just do graphic design. So I did graphic design for my 125 project, and I was like, that's cool, but I also want to do some coding, so can I also do all code associated with the graphics? So anything that was like animation or things that had to switch between things, I did the code for those. And on one hand, I know that a lot of girls in that class got stuck doing graphics or documentation. I think you were doing graphics as well when you did it, if I'm not wrong.
Team leader.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. See, I think they put a lot of girls in the organization roles or the documentation roles or the graphic design roles because they didn't want to delegate the coding jobs. Mm-hmm. But that was the only time that I really encountered it. And on one hand, it was also probably because people just didn't know how to collaborate at that point and didn't know each other's skill sets. So I feel like that was as much of an obstacle as sort of the gender thing at that point.